Welcome in, everyone. Pull up a chair, grab your coffee, and just get comfortable. We are doing a deep dive today into a scenario that, well, on the surface, it looks like a high-stakes political drama.
Right, like something out of a movie.
Exactly. But underneath that, it's actually this incredibly universal blueprint. It's about something almost all of us will navigate at some point.
Yeah, whether you're climbing the ladder at work or trying to make changes in your local community.
Or even just managing your own personal ambitions, really. You are going to encounter the specific type of pressure we're unpacking today.
You absolutely will.
So our mission today is to deconstruct exactly how power operates. And we're using excerpts from a really fascinating piece called The Price of Alignment. And the big spoiler right up front is that power does not usually operate through brute force.
No, it operates through subtle, smiling invitations.
Yes.
And it's an incredibly important distinction to make right away because when we think of power, or particularly the corruption of power, we've been conditioned to expect this dramatic, cinematic showdown.
Right, the dark alleyway.
Exactly. We anticipate a villain sliding a briefcase of unmarked bills across a smoky table or making some blatant threat. But that is entirely disconnected from reality.
This still doesn't happen like that.
It doesn't. What we are really looking at today through this text is how compromise is beautifully, almost seamlessly disguised as something else. And usually it's disguised as maturity.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the text follows a central figure named Daniel. And he finds himself exactly in these crosshairs. And the initial premise that hooks you right away is this specific observation power rarely forces you to choose. It invites you. It smiles. It reassures.
It's so disarming.
It really is. Power doesn't back you into a corner with a weapon. It holds the door open for you and politely asks if you'd like to step inside.
Which completely bypasses the target's defenses. Think about how institutional power weaponizes politeness. It bypasses our ethical tripwires entirely.
Because you're not on guard.
Exactly. When someone is overtly hostile or demanding, your defenses immediately snap into place. Your moral compass alerts you that a line is being crossed.
You feel the friction.
Right. But when the person across the table is smiling, speaking calmly, validating your potential, they aren't registering as a threat. They register as an ally.
Yeah.
And the environment Daniel is placed in is perfectly engineered for this. It's a quiet meeting, absolutely no witnesses, and critically, no notes being taken.
The anatomy of a real offer.
Yeah.
A quiet meeting, no witnesses, no notes.
Just a conversation.
Just a friendly chat.
Mm.
And what Daniel's being offered isn't just, a pat on the back.
Yeah.
It is the literal machinery of success.
Right. The text is very clear on this.
Yeah, he's being offered tangible support, funding, critical endorsements, access to the inner circle. It's the exact kind of backing that, as the piece puts it, turns a long shot into a legitimate contender.
And that appeals directly to his sense of purpose. Daniel has goals. He likely has very noble intentions for what he wants to achieve. But he also knows that without this institutional machinery behind him,
He's stuck.
he is going to remain on the outside looking in.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
Isn't this just networking? Every successful executive, every politician, every leader needs backing. You can't achieve massive structural change entirely on your own.
No, you can't.
So how does this cross the line from standard coalition building into something more insidious?
That is exactly the question Daniel is wrestling with, and it's where the genius of the ask really comes in. The difference between standard networking and what is happening here is the presence of the stick, or rather, the calculated absence of one.
Ah.
There is no contract to sign. There is no explicit list of demands.
Right, because if there's a contract, it's a transaction.
Exactly. You can review a transaction, you can have lawyers look at a transaction, but when there are no notes and nothing is said directly, it just becomes an understanding.
An understanding.
And an understanding is far harder to parse morally.
Man, that is so true. They aren't asking him to sacrifice his core identity right then and there. They aren't asking him to cast a formal, very public vote against everything he stands for. They use this incredibly clean, corporate, completely harmless-sounding word.
Alignment.
Alignment.
Yeah.
They are simply asking for alignment.
It sounds like fixing the tracking on your car tires or updating a team spreadsheet. It doesn't sound like a moral compromise. It sounds like synergy.
And the specific terms of this alignment are fascinating to me. They want his silence on one particular issue and his support on another.
A very subtle trade.
Very subtle. And the brokers in the room tell him, in this chillingly reasonable tone, quote, "You don't have to love it. Just don't fight.
Is don't fight it.
Yeah.
That is the exact moment the trap snaps shut. Look at the psychological lever being pulled there. They aren't asking Daniel to be a vocal champion for something he despises. They are just asking him to look the other way.
Which takes zero energy.
It requires zero active effort from him. And more importantly, this deal is intentionally designed to feel temporary to Daniel.
Which is such a massive comfort to him in that moment.
Exactly. Because if you believe a compromise is only for today, a necessary stepping stone to gain the power you need to do good tomorrow, you don't feel like you are permanently altering your identity.
Right. You tell yourself, I am still a good person. I am just making a strategic maneuver.
It casually sneaks into the room without setting off those moral alarms.
Which brings us right into Daniel's internal monologue. The psychology of his rationalization is so relatable, you can absolutely see how anyone would talk themselves into this.
Oh, easily.
He relies on three main justifications. First, he tells himself that this is how change works. Second, that he can do more good inside than outside. And third, he reminds himself that no one wins alone.
Those three justifications are essentially the pillars of every compromised ideal in human history.
Wow.
That phrase, I can do more good inside than outside, it's a highly pragmatic way of looking at the world, but it is also a profound psychological defense mechanism.
He's spinning it for himself.
Daniel is actively reframing the situation so that his compromise looks like a sacrifice. He is telling himself he is taking on this heavy burden for the greater good of his eventual goals.
To be fair, though, and again playing devil's advocate,
Mm-hmm.
if he stays a purist on the outside, he accomplishes exactly zero.
Right.
He remains a long shot. So his logic isn't technically flawed, is it? You do need to be in the room to pull the levers.
His logic isn't flawed,
Right.
and that is precisely why it is so dangerous.
Because it makes sense.
The most effective traps use our own valid reasoning against us. The offer doesn't demand that Daniel betray his values immediately. It asks for his patience. By asking for patience, power allows Daniel to maintain his self-image as a force for good. Patience is a virtue. If you are being patient, you are being wise, you are playing the long game.
You're the smart one in the room.
Exactly. Asking someone to explicitly betray their values makes them feel like a villain, and people will naturally resist that, but asking them to be patient makes them feel like a brilliant strategist. It exploits his own ego.
That makes so much sense. He gets to feel like he's still in control, just biding his time. And he looks around this quiet room, and he notices something that really cements his decision. Everyone else in the room is perfectly calm.
That shared calmness is the ultimate social proof. As human beings, we are constantly scanning our environment to gauge how we should react.
Right, looking for cues.
Yes. If Daniel looked around and saw people sweating, looking guilty, nervously shifting in their seats, he might realize the gravity of what he is agreeing to. But he looks around and sees relaxed, successful, highly respected people.
Just sipping their water.
They are calm because they have all made this exact deal before.
And that leads to this incredibly profound realization from the text. This isn't corruption, it's normalization.
I really want you, listening to this right now, to think critically about environments you've stepped into. Have you ever walked into a new corporate culture or a new social dynamic and noticed a practice that immediately struck you as slightly off?
Like a gut feeling.
Yes. Maybe it's a dismissive way a manager speaks to junior staff. Or an ethical shortcut a sales team always takes to hit their numbers. Initially, your instincts flare up.
Because you know it's wrong.
But then you look around and everyone else is completely calm. Everyone else has already accepted it as the baseline reality. So over time, you accept it too.
Wow.
And that is normalization. It is the slow, quiet erosion of a standard, achieved entirely by the sheer weight of the crowd.
It's the water we swim in. And if Daniel were to say no in that room, well, physically, saying no is easy. It's a single syllable.
Yeah.
But the logistical cost of saying no is immediate and total.
It's devastating.
If he walks away, he gets no funding. He gets no allies. And most critically of all, he never gets a second invitation to that room.
Which brings us to the mechanics of control and dissent. There is a brilliant structural mechanic at play here. The system doesn't punish dissent. It starves it.
Let's really drill down on the difference between punishing and starving, because that feels like a crucial distinction in how modern power operates.
It is entirely crucial. If a system punishes someone loudly and publicly for dissenting, it creates a martyr.
Oh, shit.
It gives the dissenter a platform, a narrative, sympathetic followers. It shows everyone else that the system is actually afraid of the dissent. Punishment creates friction.
Right.
But starvation is frictionless. If you dissent, the system doesn't destroy you in a fiery public spectacle, it just stops inviting you to the quiet meeting.
The calendar invites just stop coming.
Exactly. It quietly diverts funding away from your projects. It removes your access to the microphone. The algorithm of power simply ignores you.
You just slowly fade into irrelevance.
You become a ghost. And Daniel understands the logistics of this perfectly. He knows that if he walks out of that room in righteous indignation, he won't be remembered as a hero holding the line.
Right.
He just won't be remembered at all.
Faced with this binary choice, become a contender through quiet compromise, or be starved into total obscurity. Daniel does what I think almost all of us do when we feel trapped in a high-stakes moment.
Yeah.
He doesn't sign, but he doesn't refuse either.
He punts.
He punts.
Yeah.
He relies on the safest phrase in any negotiation. I'll think about it.
I'll think about it is the ultimate delay tactic. It allows him to escape the immediate tension of the room without severing the opportunity.
Right.
But does delaying the choice actually save him? The reality is that this non-decision instantly plunges Daniel into a state of limbo. He hasn't preserved his integrity, but he hasn't secured his power either.
He's just stuck.
He is suspended in the anxiety of the unmade choice.
And the deal completely follows him home. It doesn't follow him on a piece of paper, because again, no notes. It follows him entirely in his own thoughts.
It haunts him.
It really does. It essentially sets up camp in his mind. He's sitting at home agonizing over the abstract concept of a moral victory versus the tangible, undeniable benefits of a strategic alliance. He's forcing himself to figure out where exactly compromise ends and surrender begins.
That is the heavy burden of the limbo state. The system doesn't even need to pressure him anymore. The power brokers can just sit back because Daniel is now doing the work for them.
He's negotiating against himself.
He is actively pressuring himself, trying to mentally balance the scales of his own ambition.
Here is where a major paradigm shift happens in the text. While he's stuck in this mental loop, the equation suddenly flips. Up until this point, Daniel has only been asking what the deal gives him.
Yes.
He's been focused on the funding, the access, the ability to eventually do good once he's inside the room. But sitting there in the quiet of his own home, he stops looking at the gains and finally asks what the deal takes from him.
Which leads to the heaviest, most profound insight we uncover here. Every deal doesn't just shape policy, it shapes people.
Man, that line forces a total perspective shift. It makes you realize the currency in this transaction isn't influence, it's identity.
It completely reframes how we think about our own agency. We tend to view compromises as external actions. We think of them as levers we pull to affect the world around us, to advance a career, to get a project greenlit, to build a coalition.
Right. Things we do.
Exactly. And in that scenario, we view ourselves as the fixed, unchangeable operator pulling those levers. We think we are separate from the action.
We think we are immune to the thing we are doing.
But that is a dangerous illusion. You are not a fixed entity. The act of compromising, especially when you wrap it in the comforting logic of patience or maturity, actually reaches inside of you and alters your internal architecture.
It changes your baseline.
The price of this alignment isn't public. It's not a line item on a budget that anyone else can see. It is deeply personal, and it happens on a cellular level regarding who you are.
And there is a harsh finality to this transaction. The realization hits that once you pay this personal price, you don't get a refund.
You cannot unshape yourself.
Yeah.
You can't navigate through years of normalized compromise, achieve your ultimate goal, and then simply revert back to the idealistic person you were before you walked into that quiet room.
You can't just flip a switch and go back.
Once you accept the alignment, that alignment is integrated into your baseline. The original version of Daniel, the long shot who hadn't yet been invited to the table, is gone forever the moment he accepts the terms. He might endlessly tell himself it's a temporary maneuver, but the psychological change is permanent.
You just don't get a refund on your own integrity. And just when you think Daniel has fully reckoned with the weight of this choice, we get this subtle teaser in the source for what lies ahead.
The coffee talk.
Yeah, there's a mention of a future scenario, a coffee talk, that makes it clear power won't just test Daniel in the boardroom or the political arena. It is going to test his home. His ambition is currently on a collision course with its first real casualty.
It's a brilliant expansion of the stakes. The blast radius of his decision is growing. It shows that the compromise doesn't just quietly shape Daniel internally, it bleeds outward into his personal life.
It affects everybody else.
That phrase, real casualty, heavily implies that the cost of alignment isn't exclusively paid by the person making the deal. It is very often paid by the people who love them, the people who trust them, and the people who believed in the original version of them.
It's impossible to keep it contained to just one quiet room. So turning this back to you, listening right now, we've walked through Daniel's journey, from the smiling invitation to the agonizing realization of what it actually costs. And I really want you to take a moment to reflect on your own landscape.
Absolutely.
Where in your life, your career, or your community have you encountered a deal that smiles at you? Where have you been asked for just a little bit of alignment, just a slight adjustment of your standards in exchange for a seat at the table?
It might not be political power.
No, it could be a long-sought promotion. It could be securing venture capital for a startup. It could even just be gaining social acceptance in a new group.
If we synthesize everything we've explored today, the most elegant and dangerously effective tool that power possesses is not force. It is the quiet, relentless normalization of compromise. It is the ability to frame surrender as mere patience, and to make the slow erosion of your core values feel like you're simply being pragmatic and mature. Power invites you in, makes you incredibly comfortable, and steps back while you convince yourself that you are doing it for all the right reasons.
It really is a masterclass in exploiting human nature. Before we wrap up, our expert has one final thought for you to take with you, something to really chew on as you go about your day.
I want to leave you with this final, lingering question to mull over on your own. We've established that every deal shapes people and that you cannot get a refund on those changes. So, if every small compromise subtly shapes and alters who you are, at what exact point does the original you cease to exist, leaving nothing behind but the alignment itself?
That is a question that will absolutely keep you up at night. Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive. We love unpacking these scenarios with you. Keep questioning the systems around you. Always keep an eye out for those smiling invitations, and we will catch you on the next one.